there was this big hullabaloo about a week ago, I want to say, where but there was this thing being sort of thrown around in the media where, obviously, about a week ago, Russell T Davies said he has no idea whether Billie Piper is the 16th Doctor, or is the Doctor, I should say. Which, I mean, is kind of true from at least the last Doctor Who magazine issue. However, the thing with that is, obviously, Doctor Who magazine is written long in advance. So, obviously, this came out more recently than that. This was about a week ago. And I saw a lot of people kind of taking this quote and going, oh, there's nothing, there's no ideas, he's got nothing. And I just wanted to kind of show, because I think it was Joe who posted this, the original context of this clip, because if you watch it, he comes across a lot better, and it's very clearly kind of just a joke that he's playing on the panelists or on the presenters of this show, this podcast that he's on. So let's take a quick look at that.
Right, we've got to ask the question, and you don't have to answer, because I've said that we wouldn't delve too much into this, but the episode that ended with because I want to, because that's why I'm asking, Billie, is she returning as the... I knew you wouldn't answer.
What happened? No, I have no idea. Wow.
We've had 2 years of a wonderful shooting.
I've been drilled by tougher than...
Yeah, have you?
Okay.
And she's kind of let a few little things go when she had her interview for Unleashed.
Really?
Yes, yes.
What's that?
Did you enjoy working with her?
When's that?
Because we're probably a year behind her. No. Okay, you're not going to crack. But she would make a very good Doctor, though, wouldn't she?
That was the context of the original clip. And I wanted to play that because, obviously, it's very different from the context that is presented by the articles. The articles were, obviously just the quote without the accompanying imagery. And I guess the reason I wanted to do this segment is I think, obviously, it's so easy for things to just be, blown way into out of proportion, when if you actually watch the context that supplements them, they're so much less kind of sensational. Does that make sense? Obviously, I don't know whether Russell does have a plan for Billie Piper. He may not, but I think it was funny watching people kind of use this as proof when if you watch it, it could very easily just be him playing coy with a presenter, which of course he's going to do. Whether he has a plan or not, he's not going to say it. He's not going to say, oh yeah, this is what the plan is. And again, I'm very critical of the Billie Piper decision, as you guys all know. However, I do find it weird how, just how much he just gets completely taken out of context sometimes. And I guess I just want to do this as a PSA to be be careful when you look at quotes. Be sure to look at, the full context, because, as I say, when you look at that quote and then you look at the accompanying video, kind of changes the way that it kind of plays out, if that makes any sense. Ncuti has confirmed he's not returning to Doctor Who. Obviously, William Who's tweet. Ncuti has confirmed he's not returning to Doctor Who, which is not a surprise, lol, despite the wishful thinking for some. Very interesting, though, he says he doesn't know who the next Doctor is. Wonder if he's aware Billie isn't playing the 16th Doctor, or she's at least not full-time. So yeah, this was a very interesting clip for a few reasons, and I'm going to play it and then I'm obviously give you my thoughts.
Ncuti, because normally I'm interviewing politicians, you see, and people come off and they say, he didn't really answer the question. He laughed when you asked him whether he did.
You've not just compared me to a politician in this day and age.
I merely pass on to you that there may be some people who think you didn't quite answer that question.
What was the question?
You finished playing Doctor Who.
Gonna need a straight answer, Ncuti.
I've finished playing Doctor Who. We all saw the gold sparkle, or did we? I don't know. I just don't know who the next Doctor Who is, but it's certainly not me.
So yeah, this interview is fascinating to me for a couple of reasons. Number one, I don't blame him at all for not wanting to be compared to a politician, especially these days. Very fair enough response to that. Second of all, I think it's interesting the way he said, obviously he's done with Doctor Who, which we all kind of knew, right? We all kind of knew, obviously I know that there's been some people, we spoke in chat earlier, someone saying, oh, he might come back to do an extra thing. I think he is done. And, I kind of thought that ever since, he regenerated, that's normally it. But to hear him say it, and kind of officially say, I'm done with it, still makes me a little bit sad, not gonna lie. Even though I knew it was the case, kind of hurts to hear him say it a little bit. The other thing I thought was interesting about his quote here is, we all saw the gold sparkle, or did we? So that's interesting to me on a couple of levels, because it's kind of like, does he not know whether the gold sparkle was added, or is that a comment on the fact that the ratings were lower than they were anticipating? Obviously, I don't want to get into the whole ratings debate, but I just thought that was an interesting quote from him. Maybe he's more so just saying, that not everyone will have watched it, especially maybe, the audience for BBC Radio, maybe like some of them wouldn't have watched it. I don't know. But that was an interesting quote. And then obviously the final quote, which everyone has latched onto, being the whole, I don't know who the next Doctor is, but it isn't me, obviously implies that it isn't Billie Piper. I mean, obviously, we don't really know what Ncuti's been told with regards to the future of the show, whether he's really been told anything, I mean, he might well be just as in the dark as the rest of us, but the fact that he said he doesn't know who the next Doctor is at least somewhat implies that, like, Billie isn't the mainline replacement, like, full-time, because we know that, like, Ncuti knows about Billie Piper being at the end. They've interacted on Instagram and stuff, so it's not like he's unaware that Billie Piper appeared, but he's aware but still says he doesn't know who the next Doctor is, once again implying that Billie Piper is not a permanent thing. I do think it's kind of sad as well that, like, because of all this, Ncuti doesn't really get that moment where he, like, hands off the baton to someone else. Do you know what I mean? He kind of exists in this weird limbo state, because even though that's kind of true of Jodie as well, because obviously Jodie and David's sequences were filmed, quite far apart. There still was that phone call between the two of them where Jodie was like, what? I can't believe it's you. And then, of course, they had a group call with Ncuti as well. And there's kind of this tradition of, all the Doctors meeting and interacting, and, there's all those old photos of, David Tennant and Matt Smith on the TARDIS together for the first time, and, there's that story of Matt Smith giving Peter Capaldi his watch as he wanders away. And I just think it's kind of a shame that there isn't any of that, for Ncuti in this case. There isn't a handoff. There isn't kind of this. It's just another one of those traditions that, while not being like a hugely important thing, I think it's just kind of sad that he doesn't have, Like, even Sylvester McCoy got his handoff in the movie in the end. So, yeah. I will also say it's very weird seeing him without the mustache now. That's weird. Obviously, I know that that's how we all became familiar with him, most likely through Sex Education. But man, it's like the mustache has just become such a like synonymous thing with Ncuti's image in my head now because of Doctor Who that it's weird seeing him without it. But I wish him all the best. I can't help but be a little bit sad that it is all over. I do think that given more time and some better circumstances, he could have been an all-time Doctor. I just it does make me sad the way it all panned out.